Alrighty. Welcome to the Real Estate Chicago Style Podcast. I am your host, Joe Smazel. I'm a broker who sells apartment buildings in Chicago with a firm called Intera Realty. And I own and operate some small apartment buildings on the north side of the city with my wife. And that business is called Smaz Apartments. As always, thanks to my partner in producing the podcast, Stephen Caban from Full Bars Media. Reach out to Stephen for any real estate marketing needs. He's awesome to work with. I've really appreciated the way that he's approached producing this with me. Today on the show, I'm joined by Jonathan Gordon, the CEO and founder of Experiential Capital Group, the owner-operator of the Neighborhood Hotel brand. The Neighborhood Hotel currently has 4 boutique hotels in operation in Chicago and Southwest Michigan, Lincoln Park and Little Italy in Chicago, and then New Buffalo and Grand Beach in Southwest Michigan. Potential fifth in the hopper and a lot of growth plans throughout Chicagoland and beyond. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Fun to do it. I've admired, we were talking a little bit about branding, and I've admired your brand in the marketplace since you started it. It's just cool. Cool concept, cool execution, and I like to see thoughtful marketing. I like to see businesses that have there's a little bit of an invention within your kind of real estate platform that you've created. You filled a niche in the market, and it's been cool to see it grow.
Appreciate that.
Before we kick off, we were talking a little bit yesterday to catch up before this, and it came up kind of like why I'm doing a podcast. I just figured I'd say it for 30 seconds. It was a whim. I have had a fun time being on a couple podcasts, and I've met and gotten to know to different degrees a lot of people that I really like in Chicago, and you get to be friendly with them, but sometimes you don't get beyond kind of a surface level conversation. So I thought it'd be a fun platform for kind of having the people on that I want to have on, that I want more people to get to know. And then a side benefit is I am a big proponent of Chicago. I love the city of Chicago for the opportunity it's given me business wise, the experience it gives my family, raising our kids here, and just like all the people you meet along the way. So it is very much a pro Chicago effort too. I know you're an advocate of the city, which I appreciate as well.
And you do a great job with the podcast. It keeps getting better, and I've learned so much from all the past guests.
I appreciate that.
So keep going with it, and it's exciting to be here.
No, that's great, man. And Stephen's been a big part of that. For me, it's a pretty low bandwidth effort. We film 2 in a day, once a month, and it's always fun to do. It's a fun day to have. So I'm going to keep it going. We'll keep putting it out to a high standard. Anybody that's reached out about it, I'm appreciative about, because it gives you a little bit of encouragement to keep it going. But more than that, I am all for people reaching out with guest recommendations or ideas on topics or whatever, because if I have that, it takes some of the thought process and the work out of it for me. I'm happy to talk about whatever people are actually interested in hearing about and who they're interested in hearing from. So anyway, I never talked about why I did it on the podcast, and figured I'd address it. So anyway, we're starting with some rapid fire questions. Be as rapid as you like. What's your favorite intersection or corridor in the city?
I've lived in a handful of neighborhoods: Wicker Park, River North.
Yeah.
Ended at Rush and Bellevue, which just feels like main and main for my family and just different points in my life.
Yeah.
So I can go Bellevue, I can go head over to the lake and be on the beach at Oak Street, and 5 minutes, go for a run or hang out, and you've got skyscrapers behind you, or I can be where all the action is.
Dude, it's wild. Great corner, outrageous energy at that corner, but it is funny the way that you describe it, where you can take this really quiet neighborhood street straight to the lake and be active or hang out, or you can go on the north-south street and be right in the middle of the buzz, the shopping, the dining, the restaurant. It's a cool kind of dichotomy is the word, but it's cool to have that like optionality right there, depending on which direction you turn. Yeah, maybe this question's related. What's your favorite Chicago restaurant?
I'm at Gibson's the most. I can go like early bird special with my neighbors and my kids at 6:00, or I can go do a late dinner and serve so many purposes. And prior to that, I was at Gene Giorgetti's my whole life, kind of growing up, and I used to love the waiters and the culture and the way they treated people there was very cool, especially during the Jordan years.
Two classics.
Classics.
Gibson's in the last few years for me has climbed up probably to the top of the list of favorite steakhouses for me. Like there's so many good ones, but it just seems real Chicago. The food is super consistent. The service is like kind of Chicago too, where it's just like enough pleasantries without being like full of shit type of. I don't know. It feels like the right level of like hospitality for me in there, and then you get an awesome meal every time.
Yep, you just sit in that patio and like watch the world go by.
All right, if you're on a road trip, what are your go-to snacks and drinks at the gas station when you stop?
Probably just simple, like jerky and some soda, just kind of keep it going.
Yeah. All right. Favorite Chicago show, street fest, concert venue, or sporting event to attend? I understand you could probably answer all four of those, but what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say favorite Chicago happening to attend?
I'd love to just sneak into a Lollapalooza. And then the Windy City Smokeout. I think those
I'm
are
too
just
old for Lollapalooza, dude.
Yeah,
Windy City Smokeout, I'm good for. The country, the barbecue, like.
I just feel like you need to keep going back so you know what's going on.
That's true.
The kids stay the same age, but you keep getting older and evolving.
Yeah. All right. If your colleagues described you with one word, what do you think it'd be?
I'm an optimist.
I like that too. All right, based on the buildings you own and operate, I'll go out on a limb and say that you like vintage buildings. Do you have a favorite building style?
I love the history and the story behind the assets, almost as much as the style. Just kind of looking at asset and saying like, we got to let it be what it is. And that guides the design, and for the hotel, it guides the brand story. And in some ways, like the unit mixes as well. But Lincoln Park, we just have a killer asset from 1893. Looks like a castle and takes you back to when the street looked very different.
Yeah,
Clark and Wrightwood.
It's funny to think about a building that's 120 years old in the context of what it looked like 120 years ago on the streetscape, because you get so. It's hard to see past what's there right now. And like, we weren't around 120 years ago, but you see the old pictures like, oh my, like life in general was different, and this building was still relevant maybe in a different way, maybe the same. For some apartment buildings that I sell, it's like that building has lived as an apartment building the whole time.
Yes.
And has maintained relevancy, is still, you have to upgrade systems, you have to keep up the envelope, there's things to do. But still certainly not functionally obsolete, and in a lot of ways better than you could build it for today.
Right.
When you put, like, I think in other markets across the country, a lot of the housing stock it's not as, there's not the same like pre-war vintage, maybe it's 70s construction, 60s, 70s construction or newer. It's cool.
It's cool.
Cool.
And
it's cool to embrace it. It's cool to care, I think. Part of like, you have to just appreciate certain things about what we do. There's a lot on a day-to-day basis that can be feel kind of like a grind, but if you step back and you're like, that building is cool and we did a good job with it.
Right.
It makes you feel good about the work. Where is your happy place?
It's in Southwest Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy, in Chicago too.
Yeah.
But I find
it's like the Happy Gilmore happy place. You know what I mean? That's what you understood the question. All right, last one, man. Give us an up-and-comer in the Chicago real estate scene that you think deserves some recognition.
I have two colleagues that are young and solid. Jimmy Georgantis joined the team from Revantage, doing finance and accounting work for Blackstone, and he left
Blackstone. I've never heard of that.
yeah, right. And he believes in the vision and in what we're trying to build with the neighborhood hotel, and he's solid. And then Matt Shanley heads revenue and ops. He was actually living in our hotel in Lincoln Park. Needed a furnished extended stay apartment, and raised his hand and said, I want to learn more. So he was able to
yeah, he's a stud. I got to know him a little bit better. The two, I don't know Jimmy, but I trust you. But Matt, I got to know a little bit as we were kind of discussing a deal or two, or whatever, having a catch-up meeting. Great guy. And it's also like when you surround yourself with people like that, drives you too. I got a couple of great guys that work with me right now, and it's like keeps you energized.
Right.
You want to do well by them too.
In everything,
especially if they're a little younger also, like maybe a little bit of same rationale for going to Lollapalooza makes you feel like you're not just like an old stale dad,
yeah,
and like stuck in your ways about how you do things. Awesome. All right, you're off the hot seat for the rapid fire, so feel free to ramble as much as you want. I like to I've been starting these all off the same, but I just think that it's I don't know, it's the only way I know how to do it. I think that it provides some good context. So just why don't you start by telling us a little bit about growing up, much as you care to share about that. Maybe share an entrepreneurial story, from being a young man or boy, and lead us to how and why you got into real estate.
Sure.
Yeah.
I grew up in Northwest Indiana in Munster,
Cool.
so half hour south of the city, and my dad grew
Kind
up
of like a suburb of Chicago.
Yeah, I feel like I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
My mom's family's from Northwest Indiana. My dad was from the city, and he worked downtown, and on the weekends he would have me either by his factory over by Midway or downtown in Lincoln Park, and I loved going to the city, and I always chose let's go downtown for dinner, rather than see what's new in the region.
Yeah.
And all the excitement that came with that, taking Lakeshore Drive up and seeing the buildings, and watching construction, and
We talked to our mutual friend Kevin Werner about that too, and kind of like just the growing up vision of the skyline. It's a real you take it for granted. Like you live downtown now.
Kevin and I share that passion for the city, and my kids have to deal with me talking about the history all the time. Every time we drive by the Children's Museum used to live in be in Lincoln Park, on Clark Street, and all of my experiences that are so fond.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you spent a lot of time in the city. Where'd you go to school? Were you good? Were you a good student? Grade wise, what did school represent to you growing up? Do you have a neighborhood hustle, like mowing lawns or selling widgets or lemonade or whatever,
Right.
anything like that? What was there an entrepreneurial inkling back then?
I think I did every typical kid entrepreneurial job, shoveling snow and then spray painting people's addresses on the curbs. It was just always kind of with me. And I loved the challenge and the interaction, and I didn't want to go work at the Park District for whatever minimum wage was at the time, when I could go create and sell.
Yeah, I did both growing up. I did the minimum wage jobs,
I actually did too,
couple of them, and a lot of perspective gained from that, and also just I also you appreciate that. Work doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, and some people, I think it's either some people work to live, some people live to work, and I fall more in, the latter camp these days.
Right.
That, work is a big part of my I guess identity, and but I had it's so fun. I had a job at the school district where we just did yard work in the summer, and the guys I worked with were awesome, and it's just good to have the frame of reference for both.
For sure.
Was there anybody you point to a person or two, or even if you want to answer an experience or two that was a segue into the real estate business, or you think was kind of like influential in you going that direction?
So I have a lot of real estate in my family.
Yeah.
My uncle in Indianapolis is a developer.
Yeah.
And he would build power centers and drugstores, and I'd get to go drive by and have a frame of reference, like the new power center off the 65 and on the way to Indianapolis. So I'd be able to get to like see, touch, feel some projects.
Cool.
And I also knew that he was able to create a great life. So real estate was something early on. I said that could be a great path for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was industrial, office, retail. I had to go figure that out on my own, which fortunately I was able to do after college, which was at the University of Kansas.
Okay. So you went to Kansas. I'm sure that was no fun at all. They had good basketball too, probably back then. I mean, just fun school. In very unoriginal fashion, you were a Midwest kid that went to a Big 10 or Big 12 school and then landed in Chicago thereafter? Or was there a step in between where you did not go to Chicago?
I didn't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay, so you came to Chicago, got right into real estate?
Came to Chicago, met with a friend's dad who helped me understand, you've got to break it down into industrial, office, retail. Pick a major.
Yeah.
And then the other side of the page, do you want to do landlord work or tenant work?
Yeah.
And after I had that framework, I was able to say, okay, well, let's go talk to some people. And an introduction turned into another introduction, and I think the day that I was offered an opportunity to go work at Collier's Industrial, I had made the decision that I wanted to do downtown office brokerage.
Oh, okay.
And I stuck to that plan, even though the industrial direction could have been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot too, because when I got into real estate, I did not even I talked to my uncle who was in Denver, and he was in multifamily business and started as a broker and owned and operated, some of his own stuff and a big management company in urban Denver. And he had given me a little bit of the same direction it sounds like you got from your friend's dad, where you have to pick a food group, especially in a big market. It's like, you can't do a lot of, or a little bit of a lot. You kind of have to,
Specialize.
do a lot of a little, right? Have a niche. And, but I don't know if I just brainwashed myself from really loving the apartment industry after doing it for about 15 years and getting to know everybody in it and stuff, or if it's just a really fortuitous thing that happened. But when I interviewed at Marcus and Millichap, I interviewed with folks that did kind of every different food group, and I ended up starting with a guy named Jamie Clow who did apartments, and it was more of just a personalities clicked, and timing was good for him, and but I'm very happy that I started in apartments. But it's interesting, when you think back at what that moment looked like. If I would have clicked with somebody that did something, would I be as passionate about office stuff today? I don't know. But
well, that's why you need to meet a ton of different potential mentors and talk to people and figure out how to land in the right spot.
It's very true. If there's somebody kind of at that point in their career where they're deciding which path to go down, don't be cavalier about those conversations, because the more people that you can get to know not only that product type, what's going on with it today, what's the forecast for it or whatever,
right.
But get to know how it fits what you want to do, because there's retail, financing, management, brokerage, there's just a lot of different careers within real estate they share some similarities, but the skill sets required to be effective at them have some overlap. There's also some distinct differences. So if you want to be in real estate, make sure you kind of pick the right lane, because and I know that the first few years of it are the toughest.
Right.
And you don't want to, I don't want to say throw those away, because experience is experience, but you don't want to go all out on something that you end up pivoting away from, because, there's really not a marketplace for what you do, or transaction velocity is not there enough, or it's just an oversaturated segment. Like, spend a little bit of time on the front end to make sure that you understand what those years are, because they're really important few years to get started. And if you have to have those 3 years, 2 or 3 times, you're gonna get burnt out before you get your legs underneath you. I don't know, a little bit of a tangent, sorry, nobody asked me for that. What about, something I was thinking about this weekend when I had put together this kind of like outline or some ideas for questions is, as my kids are getting a little bit older, I'm thinking about like things from my childhood that I did, or priorities that were instilled, that I'm trying to do the same with, even though it's some things that are different about growing up in Chicago than Iowa. Is there anything about your, like how you look at being a dad that you remember from back then in Munster that, you're really working on here in Chicago, and maybe something that came natural and easy for you, or something that like you have to kind of like work to prioritize a little bit more in fatherhood here?
Well, the way that I remember going to work with my dad, even if it was just to drive a forklift or kind of be in the factory, he was in the box business. My kids come to the hotels and they're
I see them sometimes
they're
like
cleaning
in the social
baseboards
media
with
stuff.
housekeeping.
Yeah, I love that.
And my wife's an entrepreneur, and the kids are very much present with her, both on social media and in the office. So they're getting a front row seat to it.
That's cool.
And then as I mature as a parent, it's just been more about dialing back to like, maybe the family should have some core values, or some things like that we like keep it simple for them.
Yeah.
In terms of just how you treat people and how you show up on time and like do the little things really well.
Yeah. That's a good answer. And I've observed that your kids are involved in the business too, and see it firsthand. Doesn't hurt that you and your wife both have cool businesses that it's also like not a boring thing to take them along to to touch and feel the real estate. I understand that your wife is in, I think, design and fashion type stuff too, so that's like, they're two I'm sure exciting things for younger kids to see, as opposed to like more of an office job might not be as fun.
Our girls are just at a great age. They're 10 and 8,
so they still think you're cool too.
They're sponges. They love dad.
So you mentioned that you started at Collier's. You stuck to your guns.
I started at Transwestern.
My bad.
So when I had the opportunity to go to Collier's, I said, no, I've chosen downtown office.
Okay.
Which led me to Transwestern.
Transwestern. Okay. So you did downtown office, broker, tenant rep, landlord rep.
Tenant rep.
Okay.
So
for how long?
About 10 years.
Oh, that's a good run.
But I saw your LinkedIn post. Congrats on $1 billion in sales.
Thanks, dude.
The trajectory was also amazing, just to see the growth kind of year in, year out. Pretty nice, consistent jumps.
Yeah.
But the first couple of years in brokerage, I think you said like zero, zilch.
Yeah.
Not in the columns, but like cutting your teeth as a broker. Those first few years. I mean that. You got to learn how to stack up wins and appreciate them. It was like every cold call and
big time. That to be honest, like I usually deflect like compliments like that, or like achievements like that. It makes I don't know. I don't like to. This one I've really kind of like soaked in a little bit more, and it made me a little bit like retrospective about getting there. And when I looked back at, I lived very frugally the first few years of doing it. Like I kind of approached it in my head like it was like grad school. Like I wasn't going to make a lot, but I was going to learn a lot, and I knew it was what I wanted to do. After I got started with it, I kind of saw the path to it being a little bit more of a business, and then the mindset kind of changed where like, all right, you're starting a business. It's not like you're doing a career where you're underpaid, which is what it can feel like. I left a job that I was making a lot more money than I did in the first few years of doing this. But I'm like, all right, if you're starting your business, like you have to start it somewhere. Those things help me kind of like trick myself, or like have the mindset to stick with it. But also like when people reach out, oftentimes I feel like they want to like skip forward to year like 5. And then when you start to make a little bit of money, you have some flexibility in your life, you have some relationships, and just you don't get to do that. Maybe some people do, if they have some family or something that can connect them. But even still, you don't. That even if that's the case, then you still have to form your own like knowledge base.
Right, you
and,
have to put your time
hustle.
in.
Yeah. The other thing that doing that, kind of like doing the post I put out where it showed year over year and cumulative was like generally I've grown in number of deals and transaction size and stuff, but you see when you look at that, it's not a straight line business. If you look at it year over year, things really significant can happen in the market that change how easy or hard it is to get deals done. But also just like I try to maintain like consistency in the different buckets of like proposals, listings, under contract, but inevitably like you get really busy with a bunch of stuff under contract and you really focused and it's time consuming to get them done, and like maybe the inventory falls behind. So It's just like when I look at those, a year that I did $170 million versus a year that I did $85 million, I was not working twice as hard. It just like things were clicking. So when you started as a broker, you did it for 10 years. You had some success doing it. When and why did you pivot to the principal side? What did you see as the opportunity? What was like what was the itch that you wanted to scratch in it?
So I think the idea of being on the principal side is always there and exciting.
Yeah.
As an office broker, I knew how to do like very specific, kind of help the CEO find the space, negotiate the lease, be there to service the client, throughout the term.
Yeah.
If they needed to, downsize or expand or give a referral, you just had to like really appreciate that client relationship.
Yeah.
And my tenant rep team, we had some, big anchor clients. But then I wanted to do as many deals as I could, as many singles and doubles. So I would do about 20 deals a year, and I'd get to help the CEO shop for space, and I'd get to get a peek into other people's businesses and how they ran it and what worked.
Yeah.
I also got to see how landlords were bringing hospitality into the office buildings in a way that really could change the game. Prudential Plaza is the first one that comes to mind. They added an incredible roof deck and they started building spec suites. The company leaders would show up and they would quickly realize, I can imagine, my culture growing here using the roof deck. Oh, by the way, this isn't raw space that I can have delivered in 12 to 18 months. This is a furnished spec suite. And those pieces allowed buildings like Prudential to see like big absorption in the East Loop, which is the furthest from the trains.
Right.
So we're kind of recognizing how the buildings were changing, made me ready to explain that when I was meeting a friend who was putting a team together to lead Equity Commonwealth.
Okay. Yeah.
So we met for coffee. I thought maybe Cushman & Wakefield could be there for services somewhere along the line. And he called me a few weeks later and said, I think we need someone with your perspective on the asset management team.
To stay in the office, right? I mean, Equity Commonwealth.
So I left Cushman & Wakefield and I went to Equity Commonwealth.
Okay.
We had taken over the portfolio of a publicly traded REIT based in Newton, Massachusetts, and we it felt like overnight, management changed, and we were given the reins of the company.
For a lot of real estate.
So
how long did you do that?
I was there about 4.5 years.
Okay.
We started with 156 buildings. When I left, there were 10. And it was office, but also industrial, retail. There were, some vineyards. It was a really mixed bag. And
pretty eclectic group.
We sold a lot of real estate, and we repositioned a lot of office buildings to go get them, leased up and
sold. I mean, that's a very like
sold.
that part of the kind of like life cycle of a real estate deal is really important. I don't have to tell, but when you have that much real estate, that different real estate, and then, at a large scale, and you're tasked with disposing the assets at the highest price the market will bear. You have to get them to stabilization, so there's a lot of leasing. You have to position them in the market, do anything to them that you need to do to make them as attractive as possible, first impression type stuff, but then also make them very saleable through the due diligence process. So you're selling 446 deals or something like that in 4.5 years. You're seeing a lot of, there's just a lot of deal flow to that, You really kind of probably sharpen your sword more than you realize during that time.
Well,
of
it was
how to work through real estate.
It was like the gift of learning how to be an owner, and also looking at every dollar spent and trying to understand is there payback there, and also big picture market factors, and how that affects you. Is it worth playing in this market or time to sell?
Yeah. And so after you guys got to the point where you had 10 buildings, and I assume, that's when you said you left, is that when you launched Neighborhood?
I had a little bit of a head start that it felt like we were, selling our assets, and there may not be an opportunity to go redeploy the capital and create that, that bigger company in the image that we were, targeting. So I was able to look and say, now would be my time to go build something entrepreneurial. It's always, been in my head. Now I could go execute on it.
So tell us about that. I mean, how did the idea, why don't you take a step back and talk about what Neighborhood Hotels, what you do, how you're different, and then I'll ask you some follow-up questions about it.
So the Neighborhood Hotel is our boutique hotel brand. We deliver a hotel experience that involves, some of the best components of a short-term rental, like kitchens and washer dryers. And the goal is to have locations in the center of the neighborhood. So, think along the Marathon route in Lincoln Park. Our Lincoln Park.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Our Lincoln Park location is on Clark Street, where our hotel doesn't have to carry the expense load of the food and beverage operations, because walk next door to the Wiener Circle and get a snack, or go to Francis' Deli for breakfast.
How many times have you been there?
It's fantastic. So,
hot dog with a side of harassment,
Yes,
it's a very fun
any time of day.
Yeah, it's a very fun experience. So you, I don't know. So how did the idea of this hybrid, this is like a new, we talked about food groups in real estate. This is a new product type where it's you're a hybrid between.
I was able to see how asset classes were blending.
With office and hospitality.
I realized that office is a tough asset class, especially when you need to go take a full floor and turn it into amenity space, and the cost to build out a spec suite. So I knew I didn't want to play in office. And as I was traveling for work, I realized, the Starwood points weren't worth it. If I have to go stay at a Westin, walk across the street to 1735 Market in Philly, and then be upstairs in a budget meeting all day. It's like these cities have so much to offer.
You didn't get the vibe.
That you don't get the vibe. Like, next thing you know, you're on an airplane.
Dude, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that, I don't know. I thought you were just buying the real estate you wanted to buy. I didn't think about it so much from the customer experience of it. So when you saw the location on Clark and Wrightwood, for those, I assume the Chicago real estate audience that listens to this knows that it's main on Main and one of the best locations of the city. So what was it about that? Was it the building style? Was it the zoning? I guess walk me through how the acquisition criteria kind of falls into line. Do you have to start with the zoning, or you start with a size building, or you look at
it's a good question. Definitely want to get there, but let me so traveling to Philly, I had a friend saying go eat at this awesome restaurant Zahav, and go to Rival Brothers Coffee, and my city center experience wasn't allowing me to do that. So I found a curated Airbnb to try in a neighborhood called Fishtown, but Airbnb, when it's not done right, it's like someone else's stuff. It's
Yeah.
just not totally dialed in. So that was the spark to say we could do this legally. It's a hotel, incorporate the best of the short-term rental, find locations in the center of these neighborhoods. And in Chicago, we have a list of 15 neighborhoods. We're in Lincoln Park. We're on Taylor Street, and right near the Illinois Medical District. But think commercial corridors with buildings of some scale.
Yeah.
Ideally it's 30 units, but it could go up or down from there. And we need zoning, C or higher. In Lincoln Park, we worked with the alderman, Michelle Smith.
Yeah.
And she understood the concept. She said, this is where, an apartment style hotel belongs on Clark Street. It's not in a neighborhood building, with residential zoning. And she supported us to go get a zoning change and then a special use permit.
But if you don't have to insert those steps in the process, it take a lot of the uncertainty out of, market dynamics and such, right? So
Right.
if you can walk into zoning that works, then
You're one step closer to delivering.
Yeah, right. I guess let me take a step back, and I appreciate you taking a step back when I had asked about your acquisition criteria. But when you were starting, like with the Lincoln Park one, what year was that?
2019.
Okay, so Airbnb was an established thing, but it's it's significantly more so now. I think more people consider it as an option when they travel, or prefer it as an option when they travel. Did you have an issue or challenge with like adoption? Or like were people shopping for a hotel on Booking.com or Expedia or whatever the best platform is, and then they were just finding yours, or did you have to sell the idea of here's what we are? Because I know it because I've known you and I follow the social media, and I'm in Lincoln Park. We see this happening. I've known what it's been since the beginning, but I'm not sure if I was going to Fishtown in Philly whether I would have even ever come across it or understood it as an option. So what about the adoption of the customer? Was it a challenge at the beginning?
That's a good question, and we knew there was some downside protection in the business model, because when you have a kitchen and washer dryer and it's apartment style, you have the ability to do a 12-month lease.
Yeah.
That's not going to.
So that was their backstopping it.
So there
people
was
tell us to go jump.
There was a plan B.
Yeah.
A hybrid or a plan B. So
Okay.
that helps when you're investing your own money and friends and family money into a project. It also helps that it's main in Lincoln Park. So it's a really, really good asset if for some reason the customers aren't there.
Yeah.
But we knew Lincoln Park had a lack of hotels. We knew that no matter how big your house is, there's always extra guests that you'd rather have a block away.
Yeah.
You've got DePaul and
Yeah.
the health system. So we had a pretty good idea that it would be a success.
Yeah. And you so from there the next one was in Grand Beach, right? Or am I mistaken?
The second one was in Grand Beach, but with Lincoln Park, we opened our doors in March of 2020.
Nailed it.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Awesome time for hotels. Awesome time for real estate deals in general.
March 15th.
That'll put some hair.
I
in the
remember
chest.
standing in a suite, trying to help this woman from Minnesota, get the Wi-Fi to work, and we've got masks on and we're staring at each other, and it was all really interesting. So that we're just in survival mode with that first hotel, and we went to plan B, which was to take 2 floors and do 12-month leases.
Okay.
And Matt Shanley, our head of revenue and ops, was one of those renters, and that was the guy who raised his hand and said, "I want to learn more about the business."
So when you there's this, as everybody had during the beginning of COVID, there's this oh shit moment. You had just delivered your first, you'd done a lot of things right up into that, and this thing happens. It's outside of your control, outside of every model that you could have possibly planned for. So when you're in survival mode like that, so okay, you had a backstop idea to rent conventionally, but you're still renting smaller apartments in a context of, people pivoted around that time to wanting bigger apartments, spot for home office, spot for a Peloton, whatever, and you still had a meaningful part of the deal that you were renting short term. So I kind of, I kind of know who ended up settling into some of that type of housing, but I guess, how did you find your way with the rest of it? How did you get by for that, 4 or 5 months when everybody was in oh shit mode?
So in some ways, like, COVID helped a percent of our customer base like realize that they don't need a front desk.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Realize that they like to have a unit with a kitchen because you can walk to the farmer's market, come back, make breakfast.
They're not using the common amenities of a hotel.
Or if you didn't know how to use Grubhub before, you figured it out real quick during COVID when you didn't want to see or touch anybody.
Yeah. So some of those things ended up being a strength, and there was enough of the market. And as I understand, I think there was also like traveling healthcare provider like need and stuff like that, right? I mean,
yeah, people got in their cars.
Or like you had somebody in your family you were nervous about, so when the kid came back from college, you didn't want him to be with grandma or something.
We had a producer from ABC News that drove from New York and took a space for a month at like $12,000. That was an awesome moment. We had, I'm coming back to see my family and I need to rent a furnished place.
Yeah.
And this is the best location and the design is sweet. And, the decision there is not about price.
Well, it's also like confidence inspiring when you have this new thing and you have this radical disruption and you're like, all right, well, we figured it out,
Right.
So once things smooth out, operations should smooth out. So,
and you asked about Grand Beach.
Yeah.
A couple friends with homes up there, kept saying, you got to come to Michigan. And eventually that turned into, there's an old inn right by my house in Grand Beach that you should go check out. And it was a weird time to do real estate deals, and somehow it just it made sense. We had the construction crew from Lincoln Park that was able to go out to Southwest Michigan. Everybody like helped with a little piece of information that helped us decide it was the right decision. We had people that lived in Grand Beach.
Yeah.
We had people that lived in Southwest Michigan. It just all added up to taking an old roadside inn from 1914 with great history and repositioning it as the neighborhood hotel Grand Beach. It's also, Southwest Michigan has helped me learn how to operate out of market.
Huh.
So one day when we go to South Florida or another market, like, we'll have it dialed in.
So was that in like summer or fall of 2020?
That was in fall of 2020 and 21. So
yeah,
we moved from like.
But that was also, I mean, you were there's some identification of an opportunity there, because that was when Northwest Indiana and Southwest Michigan, all up and down the lake, had a boom. I mean, honestly, we bought our place in Long Beach, Indiana, in fall of 2020, and because we were like, we didn't just buy it for during COVID. We wanted to live in the city long term, but when it's lucky to be able to have the chance to kind of live a different lifestyle too with the kids and stuff when I get out of the city.
Yes.
So there was a massive boom in that market too. There's scarcity of housing available. There's like our friends are staying in it in like a month. There's I think you have like kind of a coach house style there too, but there's like a need for housing, and people don't necessarily want to live, the experience in living in, New Buffalo's cool, but this is more like, say, in the neighborhood. You're right in the center of where there's a bunch of single family homes.
Right.
You're half a block from the lake. So that one strikes me as just like also very in vogue at that time. Like,
so I grew up going to Michiana, New Buffalo.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, I realized how hard it was to rent a vacation home it was expensive, 7-night minimum, and wasn't that great.
And the towns kind of go like this on their willingness to do Airbnb.
Yes.
Like New Buffalo, there was a big scare. I don't think they ended up passing it where they banned Airbnb. I know in Long Beach you can't do any short-term
There's
rentals.
restrictions. It just causes
So if you have
noise.
a bed and breakfast,
correct.
Yeah.
And Grand Beach has an amazing history. I mean, this property was the training camp for James Braddock, the heavyweight fighter, when he fought Joe Louis at Comiskey Park.
Oh.
So there was a story there, and there was a Grand Beach. It has a very tight community of Southside Chicago folks that have houses there. So it fit into where we wanted to go with the brand.
Yeah. I still look at that also as being like, certainly at least like Chicago. It's like Chicago adjacent. It's still kind of Chicago real estate because there's so much of it. So there's so much of a dynamic of Chicago folks there that incorporate it in their lives, but also you're an hour away.
Right.
So you're bringing your same trades and everything. You're bringing the same crew that did it in urban Lincoln Park to Southwest Michigan.
And at that property, it's like about 20% of the customers are repeat customers, and that's awesome. Like, we want you to use the hotel as like the vacation home you don't have to own. Yeah. So you can book the same suite 3 times over the course of the summer, and you don't have to have the everything that comes with home ownership. Yeah.
Talk about something that I think is cool about your brand is there's thoughtful branding. We talked a lot about that a little bit. I think it was actually before we started filming. There's a thoughtful branding, but talk about like how the renovation finishes, furnishings, even layouts, like how the design and like execution of the finishes, like it's clearly a focus. So I guess like, what do you focus on? What's important? What have you realized that the customers really like care about or don't care about? Like, talk to us about like the execution of them.
So some brand development has just come like organic and is just happened in a really nice way. Yeah. Some other parts of the business are a slog, like the COVID, then supply chain, and then interest rates, all the above. But I was meeting with friends, like trying to vet out the neighborhood hotel business plan, and I went to go see a friend that was in marketing at AJ Capital, and she said, if you go do this, reach out to Marley Cruiser at Rebel House Designs. Like, it would be great.
That name's also like a cool market. Marley Cruiser.
Yeah, at Rebel House.
Just cool. Yeah.
She was starting her business the same time I was starting mine. She's designed every hotel, and I haven't had to think about what color the wall should be.
So she takes care of all the interior design.
It's been her vision, and she's just nailed it. She's got a special talent, and I walked into Lincoln Park Hotel and I saw like, the color of the walls was like millennial pink. But it was like the right choices at the right time to embrace the old and then use enough of what's happening now. Yeah. Grand Beach, feels like a forest retreat with a really great sleep experience. Yeah. New Buffalo is clean.
And they're kind of like lower strung buildings, like in the forest. They're dark. It's got a vibe.
It's cool.
Sure.
It's got a great vibe. Yeah. Little Italy Hotel. That was the former Italian American Sports Hall of Fame, and Marley said, I did research into what was going on Taylor Street. When was it booming? What years? And then what was happening in Italy at that time? And use that to guide the design. So that's she's been awesome. The copywriting, I saw a buddy post on LinkedIn that his wife was a copywriter, and I reached out to the Kulix, and Meg has like the first time she put pen to paper, like describing my vision, it was there.
So it's kind of fun to like do that a la carte, the way that you want to do it, who you want to work with. You pick pick people that you're friendly with or that come well recommended, and then it's like you're when you run a nimble shop, a lot of your even like daily experience and a lot of your success, your business ends up being folks that you decide to like hire.
Well, every dollar matters. It's just been like incredible to bootstrap and to figure it out in a nice way. The the logo design like just worked.
Yeah. What about things that you did? Things that you did that didn't add value, or that you or and then maybe the other way is like, is there anything about your first project or two that you then you learned from and you said, well, our customer really wants this too? Like anything that you can think of on either or both sides.
Well, we're continuing to learn, and now we have data to say, what the mix should be: studios versus one bedrooms,
Yeah.
or does a studio need a range, or can it be a 2-burner hot plate, or is there a way to put an air fryer into a?
Is there a one size fits all answer to those things, or does it depend on where you're at?
Well, we have a ground up project, and that'll be the first time we can truly design what's in the box.
Yeah.
But with adaptive reuse, you can have a vision and put thought behind it, but you have to let the spaces kind of be what they are.
Yeah.
Which ends up resulting in the unit count.
Yeah. How about, so did people want, like with studios and ones, did people want more space, or were they getting by with less space? Use Chicago as an example.
So our average length of stay is about 4 nights.
Okay.
We have European size appliances. I think the range is less important, but people like to boil pasta on a 2-burner hot plate.
Yeah.
The washer dryer, even if people don't use it, they want to know it's there, because if you have kids, you can go with clean clothes, or they go for a run, and
That's an example. The kids, it's like, you've thought you've packed enough on a vacation, and you've been surprised that all of a sudden you're out of clothes.
And the customers we have like Cisco Meraki, like great Wi-Fi, YouTube TV. You turn on the TV and it's there.
Go to your show that you left at home.
It's just dialed in the right way.
Yeah.
And it's about 2,200 room nights a month.
Okay.
And when you look at the reviews, the same themes keep popping up. Every time I needed something, like I turned and it was there, which is just awesome to read, because there's not too much stuff in each unit. It's meant to be like just what you need, like great coffee, just what you need. Maybe barbecue or reheat leftovers or.
Well, it's really hard to be well reviewed these days too. It's just, especially online.
Right. We try like treat the customers how they want to be treated.
Was there anything, when I was on your website kind of prepping for this, you've received a lot of recognition, like positive press from a lot of different, like seemingly like the who's who of like travel publications and then like Architectural Digest and stuff like that. Was there any article that you ever read or recognition that you got that like you remember kind of patting yourself on the back about, or not? I don't mean in like that it was just, it felt nice, or that like you realize this really is something.
The TripAdvisor reviews are very cool, and as we dial in the ops, it's amazing to see people talk about the staff and the service, because there's no humans, there's no front desk.
Yeah.
So we're delivering service in a way via text message, which is how I want to receive information.
Yeah.
In a way that feels natural and prompt. And we just added 2 customer service agents through Stafffolio.
Oh yeah, Gabe, huh?
Yeah, through
cool.
Gabe and Alec, and the
podcast guest.
They answered like 600 calls last month, about 70 hours of customer service, and that was all done in-house.
And what I didn't fully understand about, so the business, it's Gabe Horstick and Alec Greenberg from Stafffolio. They started I think it's in
the Philippines.
The Philippines, okay. So it started a full kind of customer service and more. It's total underway of selling it, because I think that they're capable of doing like some accounting, bookkeeping type stuff, and they do a lot. But you're hiring a very like high level person there as well. and it's just more cost effective.
Right. We have two like committed team members
Yeah.
out there, and it's really helped us like dial in our standard operating procedures.
Cool.
And that's just critical to like respond to people fast, and have it written down how you address a problem, and what happens if a customer needs a credit or a refund, or if check-in's delayed on the front end, well then let's give them a late checkout on the back end.
Yeah.
So all of that is a written process at this point, and they follow the playbook. So that's been great.
That's awesome. I know it's a brand that you're passionate about growing. Like, what are some of your goals for growth of the brand? And also, when you're talking about that, keep in mind we got a lot of brokers listening and people
Right.
who, also I guess potential customers or investors, whatever. Like, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in your goals, and then where do you physically want? Where do you want the neighborhood hotels to be?
Well, we have we have a big kind of 10-year vision, but right now the team is focused on our 3-year goal.
Okay.
So we have 73, units between 1 and 3 bedroom right now. The goal is to get to 400 in Chicago in 3 years and 150 in Southwest Michigan.
And so, where do you want them to be in Chicago? Because there's a lot of neighborhoods that I would think of. It's funny how often I say neighborhoods too when I describe a brand. It's cool. I know it's not an accent, but I could think of a lot that I think would be fitting for it. But much better than me. Where as specific as you want to be, even if you say like I want to be, I'll probably take one from you. I want to be in Wicker Park, and I want to be on the 14 or 1500 or 1600 block, maybe in Wicker Park. Like,
well,
of
look,
Milwaukee.
The right size building is like ideally it can be about 30 suites.
Okay.
Like Taylor Street puts us in the center of a neighborhood.
So what does that end up being, like 15 or 20,000 square feet gross?
Yeah, 20 or higher.
Yeah. Okay.
And we know we want to be in Streeterville because we can anchor to the medical community there.
Totally.
We think there's a future near the Obama Presidential Center in Hyde Park.
Yeah.
I've been trying hard to get up and down the Milwaukee corridor.
Yeah.
From River West up to Avondale. It just kind of goes back to where's the CTA, where the lines, where can you get real zoning, and do you have to take an existing asset and turn it into a neighborhood hotel? Can it be a office to residential conversion?
Can you pivot? Can you pivot from apartment use? I guess the zoning's probably never really there.
It's zoning, and then also just the phasing of rolling the building from traditional.
See. Like, it's hard to kind of cohabitate between like the.
And in other locations, like I believe in the north part of the Loop with what Google's doing.
Yeah.
I think that LaSalle Street reinvention is going to be substantial.
Yeah.
Well,
it's also we're across the river from that right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're 1 block away from that right now, and like there's just I don't know if there's still as much rhetoric around like the Loop being dead, but I walk down there for lunch a couple times a week, or go down to the river walk or something to make some phone calls. That is a fallacy if it's still being discussed. I understand some buildings have become kind of obsolete, and they probably already were, and then it just took something to kind of call that, the analogy about seeing who's swimming naked when the tide goes out or whatever, but there's clearly a buzz again downtown.
Right, the city feels great, and we still need young people to go into the office, and that as long as it happens, we can continue to be patient, and it's already happening.
If anybody that's listening to this hasn't listened to the one with Matt Pistorio from Madison Rose too, he does a lot of office leasing, and I've followed his stuff a little bit more after talking with him, and it's just it seems like they're so active, and there's like just for good product, and I think that's a little bit about how it is in the apartment space too. If we've got good building, good location, not only is it really, really strong from a rent growth standpoint, but there's a huge flight to quality for both the customer, the resident, and the investor. That's the type of market we're in.
Right.
All right, I'm going to ask you the last two questions, and then we're going to go meet a couple buddies for lunch. But I'm asking all the guests these two questions. So, what's a piece of advice you'd give someone starting in their real estate career to either get going or to propel their business to the next level? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but
I mean, Tony Carmen was a broker at Transwestern, and from day one, it was just about how hard you work. It doesn't matter who you know. It's about how hard you work, and that helped. Do the work and make 25 calls a day and get the meetings and be there. On a summer day when it's easy to go be at Wrigley.
Yeah, it is too. Yeah, it's the hard work, and then if you can couple it with consistency, there's a lot of stuff that people do better than me in this business, but I think very few are probably as consistent over a long period of time. I think those two things in concert with each other are pretty powerful.
That's just great advice. Just put your head down, and eventually you'll
keep going.
You'll get through it.
Last one, dude. Why do you love Chicago as a place to live, raise your kids, grow your business, invest?
I mean, wherever I travel in the world, and I love to travel, it just always feels good to come home to Chicago, and that's just not changing. Like fundamentally, it's always going to kick ass.
Yeah, you appreciate it kind of more when you set that perspective too. You're like, this was really fun. But it feels really good to be home. Or I miss these restaurants. I miss the food in general.
Right.
I miss the people. I remember one time we went to San Diego and we went to a restaurant. It was a fun vacation in general. My wife and I went, and I'm like, why is everybody here just move so slow? Everybody was halfway stoned, and it was just the service was really slow. And one thing I came home this is just a stupid example, but I'm like, I went to a restaurant and I had exceptional service at a restaurant. I'm like, God, I just love Chicago. I mean, sometimes you take going somewhere and it might be something stupid that you forgot to appreciate. One thing we were talking about with my buddies in Iowa is we were going on a trip and they were talking about their connecting flights. I'm like, connecting flight? I haven't taken a connecting flight in 15 years. Chicago, you can get anywhere. There's a million things like that. So appreciate you taking the time to do this, man. It was fun. Anybody that wants to hear more about the neighborhood hotels, reach out to Jonathan, reach out to Matt. Stay in them. They're cool. Have your company retreats in them. They're cool. So keep at it, man.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.
Appreciate it.